I've got a scale model of a 5-inch greens mower here. This is a 4x scale. So the diameter of this reel is 5 inches. The behind center distance, that's from the center line to the shear point of the bed knife, is 325. The dip is 21. The dip is the distance from the shear point, which is right here, to the bottom of the reel blade path. So the reel blades are dipping down 21 below the shear point of the bed knife. The height of the cut is 100. That's from the shear point to the baseline, which is the line that goes, basically touches the bottom of the rollers. The clearance is the distance from the baseline to the bottom of the bed knife. This bed knife has the attitude of approximately 5 degrees. So the distance between the baseline and the bottom of this bed knife is 50, which is about half of the bench height of cut. The gathering length is going to be twice the BCD. The gathering length here is 0.650. That's the length from the shear point to the point in front of the center line where the reel starts dipping into the canopy below the shear point. So the aggression of this cutting unit, it's a little on the aggressive side. It's not as aggressive as some units. So again, this is the behind center distance from the center line to the shear point. This is the gathering length, which is double. This angle from the center line to the line that's drawn from the axis of the reel to the front edge of the bed knife is called the angle of aggression. Watch what happens when we input a couple of three different types of turf. This blade has a rake angle of about 17 degrees, which is typical. Here's a turf with no grain. The top of the turf blades are a little bit higher than the shear point. They're about a third of the length or the distance from the baseline to the tips of the grass. When this reel blade starts it's going to start gathering grass blades way out here, way in front of the center line. But since the grass blades are basically standing up, there's no grain. It's not going to cut any of this grass. It's only going to cut a little bit, about 1/3 of the length of the grass that's right there. It's all it's going to do to this grass that's about 5/8 of an inch in front of the shear point, which is the gathering length, is just push this grass down. And it'll cut a little bit of grass right here. If we're mowing with a unit that has some aggression, like this one does, and we're mowing with the grain in this direction, this reel blade is going to start gathering this grass, which could be 1/2 inch long or even longer. You can see that in one of my other videos, the claw test video will show that when you claw the grass against the grain, you can pull up grass blades that are 1/2 inch long or longer. So these are about 1/2 inch long. This reel blade is going to gather this grass starting way in front of the center line, and it's going to pull that grass up and back and cut it. And you're going to have grass blades that are probably around 3/8 of an inch long. If this same mower is mowing against the grain, what will happen is this reel blade will start pushing these long grass blades down way in front of the shear point. Push them down, and even the grass that is right in front of the shear point, it's going to push it down, and it's only going to clip off about maybe 1/3 of that 1/2 inch length, much less than when it was mowing with the grain. So this is what causes scalping in many cases. If your cutting unit is what I call sound and you get scalping, you will probably find that the scalping occurs when the mower is going with the grain, and you will find when you do the claw test that there is a significant amount of grain, and you'll find that the grass blades are, much longer than 1/10 of an inch or 1/8 of an inch. To measure aggression, we've been taught in this industry for a long time to measure the attitude, which is the angle between the baseline and the bottom of the bed knife to try to judge the aggression, which is the behind center distance and the dip. That can be a waste of time, depending on several factors. One of those factors is the length of the bed knife. If you have a longer bed knife, extended bed knife, you could have a mower with almost no aggression, but that angle, the attitude would increase. The proper way and the easiest way to judge the aggression of a cutting unit, for sure, is to use the angle of aggression. The angle of aggression directly correlates to the behind center distance and the dip. And we can calculate the BCD and the dip if we measure the angle of aggression and we know or measure or estimate the diameter of the reel. This is the right triangle that reveals all of this. So we only need to know two things about this right triangle. We know the radius, we can even estimate that, and we can measure the angle of aggression with accuracy. And then we can calculate using trigonometry the BCD and the dip. And once we know the BCD, we know the gathering length, which is twice the BCD.